laboratory for identifying survivors and allowing relatives, loved ones of those survivors to basically know that they were okay. The technology was developed incredibly quickly. It was incredibly effective, we thought, and it was designed to be. The only problem was, in the wake of a big, huge natural disaster, IP is kind of hard to get, and we didn't really realize that. And as we were designing it, we thought that, that last mile problem was something that we could easily solve, and found out when we got to that point that it wasn't, that NGOs didn't have easy access to IP or anything like that in those regions, and that was something that we had to work on. Another project which is slightly more successful is Laptops for East Africa. A friend of mine from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I live, was working for a Ugandan relief organization. He said, why doesn't the Hacker Foundation collect used laptops that are still perfectly usable and give them to me to take to Uganda to show people how to use portable, more low power drain technology to automate a lot of the things that they're doing. The paper in an environment like that in East Africa gets corroded much more easily than well-isolated technology. Things also get lost, or fires or water will destroy fire cabinets, whereas you can better protect something that's a laptop when you go home at night and more effectively use information that way. And that project more or less died because of political problems in Uganda. Museveni, who's the president, more or less, well, I'll just leave it at that, he's the head of state of Uganda, decided that he wanted to change the constitution to allow him to be the head of state of Uganda indefinitely. And a couple of aid workers from, I believe, the Red Cross were sort of engaged with the group that was in the opposition and were shot in the middle of the night, presumably by the Ugandan authorities. And after that happened, almost all of the aid projects in Uganda left, and Jim was basically ordered to leave along with everybody else like that. In our area and in a lot of areas, there's a lot of competition for laptop donations, that laptops in computer recycling are sort of considered gold because they're the easiest things to donate, the easiest things for people to use, and that sort of thing. The other problem is that a lot of the laptops we were getting were just unusable. They were unrepairable, and then once we've accepted things like that, most of the laws in the United States say that once you've accepted it, you're responsible for responsibly recycling it, and we didn't have the wherewithal to be able to do that in a cost-effective manner yet. We're trying to work on that. Another project we had was with the North Boys and Girls Club of Chicago. It's sort of an urban refuge for youth out in Chicago. They had a brilliant technology lab that was state-of-the-art about 4 years ago that was donated by a corporate executive who used to go as a child to the North Boys and Girls Club. But unfortunately, he donated all the technology and sort of left it there. And there were some guys from Chicago 2600 who were involved in trying to, keep on using this, but what they kept on saying is, in our IT professions we use professional grade equipment. We just don't have that here. The kids know that there's stuff out there that can do a lot of the things that they want to do, but the equipment we have is not up to that. And we need to try to find a way to get more and better equipment for that. And in the process of getting more and better equipment and getting guarantees from companies and getting sort of agreements from various different people who were stakeholders in that community, the guys from Chicago 2600 who were involved in that got bigger and better jobs that took away more and more of their time, and we sort of lost the staff on the ground there. And so that's another thing that we have to consider, that we have to try to, even from the beginning of any sort of project, develop how are we going to be sustainable in this? How are we going to make it so that if the project leaders, the real enthusiastic people leave, that we have someone there to replace them? And so just sort of to summarize things, to just sort of wrap up all of the lessons that we've learned, code, collaborative development projects like Metasploit, things like that, are very easy to work on across geographical boundaries. Everything happens on the net, people have easy access to communication, people know what they're doing. Relief efforts like the kind that we were pursuing don't work as well. That there are a lot of concerns with working on the ground that you just don't address when you're working on a code or on a project with other people around the world on the internet. One of the sort of things, and this is somewhat controversial in the HF board, which is why I want to emphasize this is what I'm saying. There's a current push saying that we need a base of operations. We need people in one place who meet sort of regularly to get things going, to keep things going, a place to store equipment, a place to repair equipment, a place to collect different types of equipment and things like that. And so what we're trying to do right now is moving towards the San Francisco Bay Area, where a lot of our directors are, and try to build a base of operations right there. Another thing I heavily emphasize is that we have to continue partnering with other organizations. In some parts of the hacker community in the United States, people are very much sort of lone cowboys. They want to do it on their own. They don't want help from outside people. They don't want to work with other people. And I keep telling people in the United States, you have to go outside of your comfort zone and talk to people and say, hey, we're here. You have to talk to people like you talk to the worst tech support calls that come in, but you can't be sarcastic. You can't alienate them because they have something that you need too. Another problem with the Hacker Foundation, another reason it's sort of hard for us to get projects and lift them and keep them off the ground, is because our directors are in many different geographic areas. All of our meetings happen over teleconference or IRC or things like that, and that I'm saying we really have to meet face-to-face more often. One of the things that we did at the beginning of last year is most of the directors got together in Chicago and said, okay, we have to hammer all this out into official language. And this is the first part of sort of the Hacker Foundation mission statement. After this talk, I have business cards, and all of this language is on the back of them. And I'll have just a big stack up here later on if you're interested. Unfortunately, I can't meet with anybody right after this because I'm meeting with a similar foundation here in Germany. We're reaching out to other organizations, seeing if there's a way that we could work together. But this is basically it. This is how we sort of boil down the hacker ethos into polite language that government authorities like in the United States. This, I think, is the critical part of it. Everything hinges on information sharing, and that whatever we do, anything that we're getting at is teaching people, giving people resources, showing them how to use it, enabling them, empowering them through the use of technology. And again, all the things that I mentioned here are in our mission statement. They have to be sustainable, they have to foster equality, they have to be developed in a collaborative atmosphere, they have to have that sort of hacker innovation thing that a lot of people, I think people outside of the community readily dismiss, and it has to have a charitable aim, something altruistic. One project which is successful and which is currently going on and which Jake alluded to is the Metasploit Fund. This is the sort of prototypical reason why I got involved in it. There are a lot of people and independent hacker researchers in the United States who, if they had access to grant funding or if they had access to corporate money, would be able to do a lot more things. They'd be able to develop on a lot more platforms. They'd be able to not have to work so many hours at their job and devote more of their real time to the project. Yes? Metasploit is a open source exploit development. I forgot the last term. This is why, just if you ever give a talk at a HackerCon, sleep before it. I decided not to. Framework, that's it's right there in front of me. Pardon me. I'm not drunk, really. But one of the things about the Metasploit Fund right now is that they always had a donation button on their page. A lot of open source projects will have a little PayPal donation button there. Nobody ever donates to it because there's no tangible benefit for it. I know a lot of corporations would like to donate to a lot of hacker projects or open source projects that they actually use, and if they were a marketable product, would have to pay for. But coming from a background in accountancy, if you go to the controller of your company and say, "Oh, hey, give these guys money through PayPal," they're going to look at you and say, "No, I can't do that." They have to write a purchase order. They have to go through all this administration rigmarole. That's what the Hacker Foundation does. We deal with that. We find a way to enable the people who want to give hacker projects money a way for them to give it. We are an organization. They can donate through us, specifically targeted towards Metasploit, and be able to write that off in their taxes and be able to have it as a legitimate business expense. That corporations in the U.S. can't just write a check to an individual for doing something they did for free. It just doesn't work like that. One of the great things about Metasploit is that it gets more people involved in developing exploit code, and that it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to absolutely have a backwards and forwards knowledge of C and assembly to be able to do things. I see someone there's not liking that. It's developed collaboratively. They openly invite, I mean, some people would argue with me on that, but they try as hard as they can to continue to develop it with the mind of the people who use Metasploit and the people who help code it. It's an innovative project, and because it has no profit motive, it's an altruistic project. It's trying to go out there and show where insecurities are so that they're patched before they are exploited in malicious ways by the community. Or that's their stated aim. I was thinking, and there's been a very, very minimal talk with this at the CCC level, but somebody was asking me, okay, well that's fine, how can you support something that's going on in Germany? Well, we could very easily create something called the CCC USA Support Fund. CCC has a proven track record of sustainability. They have a proven track record of trying to be as equal as possible. They foster equality, just making the gym available and taking a loss on that so that people have some place to stay during the conference is bona fide evidence of the fact that they pursue equality in action. The CCC is a great example of collaboration and working through consensus, and I think is a great model that the United States has a lot to learn from. Our community, I think the hacker community in the United States has a problem with staying power as far as organizations, that great groups will come into being, and they seem to have no more than a 5-year lifespan in most cases, especially with hackerspaces in the United States, that when you have a strong leader or the leader leaves or there becomes a fight between the upper management, the organization just dies. That I think CCC continues to innovate. I mean, this is just from what I've seen, I agree with anybody who says that this is the best HackerCon in the world. And I've worked at cons, I've helped organize, I run at DEF CON, and people here at the Congress know what they're doing. And it's a great time. Yeah.
These traces are worth real money, similar to web traces, just in the real world. There is an incentive.
Well, just one, the size and people management. The fact that I didn't see big, gigantic lines for talks here. All the talks were high quality. The speakers showed up. Things run relatively on time. The network works. It's a beautiful space. People here are very friendly and polite to outsiders. You know, I mean, I'm in a foreign country speaking my native language. You know, if you came to the United States and tried to speak German, it wouldn't work so well. and it's many, many different small things like that that add up to what I think is a very professionally run HackerCon. I mean, I could go on more if you want, but I'd probably end up using all my time. And that, you know, for all of the things taken combined, CCC has a defined altruistic motive. And so these are the reasons why I think that a fund could be created for CCC. And if you have a project out there that fits these aims, even if you're in Germany or even if you're somewhere in Europe, but you have people who would be willing to donate in the United States, please come talk to me, because I'm sure that something could be worked out. I mean, yeah, there are many different legal details, there are different financial details, there's laws and things like that that we have to go through, but that's why the Hacker Foundation exists. We did that work so that you don't have to. Just to sort of wrap things up, because I wanted to allow for a lot of time for Q&A, the reason I was into this is because I thought that there was a big need in the community to have somebody who is able to deal with that sort of middle ground, that fiduciary role for hackers that aren't at a university anymore, or that can't get grant funding because they don't have somebody to administer the grant funding. And then part of the process that we do is stripping down all of the legal headaches that you would have to go through if you were to roll your own 501c3 or roll your own charitable organization in the United States somehow. We've already worked through all the tough questions, and we know how to ask it in a much simpler way. We have hacked the tax code for you. And it's a way for you to, if you have a project that would be an eligible 501c3, instead of having to make you wait 2 years and pay $1,000 in application fees, we've done it. We can create things like this for you for free, for nothing. That's why we're here. Again, HF has been around for a while, and admittedly, we haven't done a whole lot. And I'm openly admitting that right now, and I think we need to do a better job of reaching out. That when we started this, we thought,